Any copyrighted material in this video is used under the law of fair use for commentary and criticism. The purpose of the OC Court of Justice is to learn about character development and is in no way meant to promote harassing the creator. No matter how angry I may get at them, please do not harass any of the artists mentioned in the following video. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the OC Court of Justice. It wasn't too long ago that I uploaded my first episode, and now we're at the second. Oh, how time just escapes you. And as you can see, I've upgraded Jojo. He'll be giving out tips and will be clarifying anything that I've said, so look out for him if you feel confused in any way. Before we get started on today's original character, I would like to clarify how the rules of the court work. I'll be going through 4 design elements of the character in question: biography, visual design, traits, and miscellaneous. After each design element, I'll be giving a list of convictions if necessary. Like, let's say I go through a character's traits. I might convict them of being a special snowflake. At the end of the trial, they'll be considered guilty or not guilty. The trial runs on a pass, no pass, plus offenses basis. If a character is found not guilty, then they pass, and they are considered to be somewhere between good and great. But if a character is found guilty, then that means that there are some major flaws, and it really just can't function the way it is. At least certain aspects of it. So in other words, my conviction is still up for argue. It just means that I have to ponder about it. It doesn't mean that I really feel that way. So you really need to wait until the last part of the trial before getting angry or anything. Hey, I need to keep things interesting. There needs to be some suspense. The OC Court of Justice is usually reserved for, arguably, the worst of the worst original characters. However, I realize that some people will just want to have their characters reviewed, and not all of them are going to be bad. So I need to make sure that I can give a fair ruling for whatever character I find in my court. So now that I've made you wait through all that, it's time for the trial. Today in court we have Kona by Jutan Priestess XX, or also known as Icy Hazard. And I'm sure I've said a lot of that wrong. First and foremost, we'll be looking at the biography. Kona is a vessel for a demon known as Grimwater. The vessel is a 14-year-old girl formerly known as Kimberly Small. While on a camping trip with her aunt and uncle, the demon finally fully takes over, and Kimberly, now known as Kona, starts killing anything in her path. Kona eventually comes across a journalist named Bree Robinson, who happens to know about a killer in the area, who also happens to be Kona. If I was a journalist, I don't think I'd be telling anybody about a killer I was researching unless I felt like I really had to. The part within Kona that is still Kimberly doesn't want to kill people anymore, or ever in the first place, I'm guessing. So for the moment they let Bree go. Then they find a man named Metale, who is a similar entity to Kona, and he talks about wanting to birth the Antichrist, but Kona is like, fuck that, I want to do my own shit, and then she kills him. So after that, she then decides that she wants to kill Bree. There's a little fight and Bree ends up in the hospital, which then she decides that she's going to send Kona to hell. So she performs a ritual and does exactly that. But unfortunately for Bree, Grimwater and Kimberly merge together, and Kona is reborn in Bree's body. When it comes to Kona's origin, so far so good. Nothing stands out as really inconsistent or contradictory. Though I do wonder more about Metale and why he came and went so quickly even though he seemed to have like a very pivotal plotline trailing behind him. No convictions here. Now let's move on to the visual design. Judging by Kona's weight and height, she is very tall and lanky, which Slenderman has proven to be a very smart character design choice, because it's intimidating and unnatural. And while Kona does have razor-sharp teeth, which I rather like, I think she's missing one thing, and that one thing I would say is ambiguity. Ambiguity is your best friend when it comes to creating a creepy character. Most, if not all, of the most famous creepypasta characters have a high level of ambiguity. Let's take Slenderman for example. His face is completely devoid of any facial features that a human has, which also goes into the uncanny valley. Now, ambiguity is your bitch, and the uncanny is your bottom bitch. For anybody creating a creepy character out there, remember that. When you subconsciously recognize something as human, even though you obviously know it isn't, it leaves you this feeling of either revolt or gives you utter heebie-jeebies. I realize that the shell of Kona is a person, but I still feel like she should be warped a bit more to help bring that sense of ambiguity. You recognize too much of her face, which leaves little to the viewer's imagination, which is your best weapon in making them scared. In ways I do find her creepy, but unfortunately I don't find her that creepy. Jeff the Killer and Masky are also characters that use ambiguity, and their faces are all very distorted. See, that's the common theme there. You can't quite recognize the face, and that's what really sets people off and creeps them out. Because not only are you going to be like subconsciously battling in your head whether or not that's human, you also can't tell how they're feeling, and that greatly distresses humans. And animals for that matter, actually. Perhaps if the clothing design was a little less hip, you would be able to keep her, looking rather human with the gray skin tone and the razor-sharp teeth and the glowing eyes, and she'd still look freaky. While visually I think she'd be fabulous for something else, I don't think she's quite right for a downright horror. Then again, I guess creepypasta doesn't always have to be downright horror, but like I said, there's a certain theme amongst all of the very successful creepypastas out there. If you want to create a really successful, scary character, then you have to dehumanize them as much as possible while keeping some sort of human aspect there. The conviction I'll give for visual design is something I'll call being in the wrong fandom, where the visual design doesn't quite fit the atmosphere of the fandom that they are in. It's a 5-year sentence at most. Speaking of dehumanizing, let's go on to traits. She uses a machete in her teeth for her weapons, I like that. Nothing too overpowering or anything, and it's logical considering her condition. And her powers are pretty low-key. And then there's a list of her likes and dislikes. While it's all good and well to flesh out a character for a story, oddly enough, for a creepypasta, you kind of want to leave some things unsaid. There can be obvious things that she likes, like meat, murder, and cooking. Back onto the whole spiel about ambiguity, you kind of want to leave some things untouched. The less your reader or viewer can connect with a character, the creepier they become. You don't want to give out too much information about your character, at least not in the story. Not if you want it to really be like a true horror sort of a thing anyway. Otherwise, do what you want. Even though it's stated that she hates most of humanity, I want to know how she has a boyfriend and someone who is like a sister to her. Why, out of all the people she hates in the world, does she like them the most? Is it because they kill like her? Or what exactly? Considering that she is a demon possessing a body, how did she come across them? Did she know them before she did that? What attracted them together? I like Kona's weakness. It hampers her, but it doesn't hamper her all the time. But when it does, it's really bad. God damn. Do you know how many times I have to record these lines? I'm not writing this crap out. I'm trying to do it off the top of my head. But anyway, her weaknesses and her strengths seem to be very evened out. And I like how her and Jeff the Killer are against each other. And she doesn't like him killing because, kids shouldn't be killing. That should be left to the professionals. Also, and this is probably verging into miscellaneous, I'm not quite sure what world they are in. Are they just in, the creepypasta world as a whole? Or specifically in Jeff the Killer's world, fandom, whatever. Sub-fandom, sub-world. Because that may or may not change things. Usually I'm not too into the whole, creepypasta world where all the creepypastas live together. But, it can work. Also, for Kona's likes, I noticed that she likes dolls and decorating. Now, while that makes me chuckle, they're kind of contradictory. Someone who likes to kill things, but then they also like dolls and decorating. I'm guessing you mean creepy-ass dolls? The conviction I'll have to give for the traits section, contradicting oneself. One, because her likes kind of mishmash without, from what I've seen, any reasoning. And two, as I said before, I feel like you're making her a little too connectable with the audience, unless that's what you want. You can make your character whatever you want, but realize that, depending on how you make them, people... No, excuse me. Sorry, gosh, it's so late. People's views will change on them in ways you will want or not want. If you just want to make a character for the character, that's fine. If you want to make the character to arise something certain out of the audience, you're gonna have to follow by certain fairly vague and bendable rules, but rules nonetheless. Oh, all this talk about creepypasta is actually getting me in the mood to write some creepypasta myself. When I was first recording about ambiguity in this trial, I was giving out an example of something that I was just making up off the top of my head, but now I'm thinking of actually writing it down. However, I don't want to say it because I only have enough in me to finish the trial. And that's what we're gonna do right now. Alright, order in the court, bitches. Konaze, by Juton Princess XX, also known as Icy Hazard, you are being charged with being in the wrong fandom, contradicting one's self. You are looking at a 15-year sentence in OC prison. What say you? Nothing. Okay. Kona, you are found not guilty. Every character out there can improve in some way. And while I think Kona could still use some working on, I gave her a pass because she is a functional character for the fandom that she's in. And that, folks, is my final decision. Thank you very much for watching. Do you know an OC who needs to be taken to court? We usually like the questionably bad ones here, but you know, if you want to turn yourself in, if you want to turn somebody else in, go ahead. Please leave a comment below about how fair or unfair I am. Give the video a like. Give me a reason to keep doing this late at night. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to use this channel for. So, thank you again.